Welcome to Leaders in Light, Love, and Legacy, airing every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zeno Radio/Fave. I'm Joy Ruffin, Leadership and Signature Style Specialist, and your Minister of Enlightenment, Awareness, and Awakenings. Love that word, awakenings. We're going to be talking a lot about it today. We're here diving into honest conversations about power, presence, and purpose. I'll be sitting down each and every week with a featured guest speaker who brings you fresh insights on the divine, masculine and feminine, because no matter what we're doing, that's always there, always aligned, hopefully. And that's all that it entails because we both carry male and female DNA within our gender. It's about alignment. It's about leadership. It's about building a legacy that's true to you. So, whether you're listening in for inspiration, direction, or just a new perspective, we're here for you. It's all meant to stir something in you. And what I want you to know is that when we work one-on-one to develop, discover, and design your signature style, it's going to be all about you, and it's going to be a one-on-one connection where we dwell into the core essence of how you show up and your presence. You can meet and join with me on my website, www.joyruffin. And remember, it's a Ruffin with an E, not an I. I wish I were related to David Ruffin. Oh, I don't even know who that was, but I know the name. But it's ruffinwithane.com. And also subscribe to my YouTube channel, Fashioning Femininity, Style, and Truth. Love that ending word, truth. Now, friends, whether you're here now or you're coming for the replay, sit back, relax, and help me. But before I bring my featured guest speaker up, I want to share with you a little bit about this fabulous gent, which you're going to fall in love with because he labels himself, I love his title, label, handle, however you want to pronounce it, a business therapist. I love that. And I happen to love his name because it's all what I'm about, Mark Style. Now, let me give you a little bit of a background about Mark. Mark is a graduate of the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He has earned his postgraduate certification in competitive strategy, team building, decision science, and forecasting. Oh, Mark has a never-ending background. But I know you want to see, well, how can Mark help me? What can Mark do to help me to proceed in a more successful way in my business? Well, Mark is a business therapist, and he's a founding principal of On the Mark Advisors. Don't you love that? And remember, his name is Mark Stiles. He helps intelligent small business owners and entrepreneurial people like me, and probably like you, get unstuck, unstressed, and unstoppable. Now, I could go on and on and on telling you a lot about Mark because I met Mark I guess it's been maybe a year ago through a friend, a mutual. How about that networking? Don't we all love it? But I want you to just sit back and help me welcome and say hello to Mark. Mark Stiles, welcome to Joy's Radio, Wombology. Welcome.
Thank you, Joy. Joy, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be in the same room with the Minister of Enlightenment. And I look forward to our talk today.
I do too, because when I met you, Mark, one of the first things that was appealing to me was how you label yourself. And I'm not one much for labels and titles and all of that. And I know you not knowing you, neither are you. But you, like me, you got sick of everybody's a coach. Everybody's a coach. So you went more to a therapist, which is what you're doing, really. Tell us how you came to that name.
Well, I was spent 30 years in the corporate and startup worlds. And slaying dragons, doing leadership roles, multiple functional areas, multiple industries. And after 30 years, it just, I realized I had I had a personal tragedy, and I had things that made me relook at my life. And I said, you know what? I think there's more to this than just, corporate politics and turf battles and CYA and all the fun corporate stuff that we love to do. So I looked to see, what else could I be doing where I could own my own schedule and self-determine my day. And business coaching was the first thing that after thinking about it, I thought, oh, that would be a good thing to do. So, of course, I do what I always do. I research the heck out of it, talk to a lot of people who do it. Mm-hmm. And I realized that most traditional business coaches get certified in a methodology, and then that's the methodology that they use in every case, whether or not it is a fit for that particular organization or culture. And
I love your explanation thus far. Let me tell you why. You started off with you were, I don't know if you said you were tired or you were ready to be about slaying dragons. That's one of my favorite expressions because I love dragons, and whether you believe in it or not, and unicorns, owls, and all those other transformational kind of animals. So continue, because this, for me, already is interesting, how you came to do what you're doing.
Right. So I realized that with all of the experience, the perspective, and the wisdom that I had gained over the years, that I had more to offer than just memorizing and applying someone else's methodology to every situation in exactly the same way. The cookie cutter, so-called proven method of coaching. So what I did some more reflection, and I asked myself, what do I love doing? What am I really good at doing, as validated by others? Mm-hmm. And what do people value? They might be willing to pay you for doing. And when I did that, I realized that for most of the 30 years of my corporate and startup career, I was always the go-to mentor at these companies. And people would come to me with all sorts of challenges, trying to build an effective team, trying to reach a stretch goal, even trying to get a promotion. And they would come to me at all levels, and I'd help them. And inevitably, I'd hear the feedback like, oh my God, I don't know how you did it. You saw around the corner, you knew exactly what was going to happen, and I achieved my goal. Thank you so much. By the way, you ought to do a second gig of this because you're very good at it.
Mark, I love the way you explain that. You know why? Because my next question to you was going to be, you became the go-to person. What made you the go-to person? What did you realize at the time, that terminology that we all use so freely today, you were the go-to person, and then they came back and told you, you ought to be doing this. Did you know what you were doing at the time? Did you feel that you had that, what I call the X factor, that you had that secret something, magic sauce that maybe they didn't have, and you could ignite something in them? What was that?
Well, it's funny you say that, because no, I didn't have that X factor. I was just helping people, and I realized, I didn't think of it as, oh, this is a skill that I should monetize and take advantage of. It was more just, I like to help people. And so they'd come to me and I'd help them. And it just seemed like, as they say, a scoop of vanilla, scoop of chocolate didn't seem to be too much off my back things that were obvious to me. That they saw as seeing around a corner and brilliant to them, and I never even registered with me that, oh, I could do something with this, because every time they made the suggestion, I would always say, well, the suggestion to do a second gig with this, I'd say, well, I got enough. I've got my hands full with my first gig. I really, it was stressing me out. Like, do another gig? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I was just happy to help people out. But then when I did that extra reflection, I realized, oh, you know what? I really loved helping those folks out and seeing them succeed, and knowing I had some, role and some hand in their success.
Right.
And maybe I can do something with that. It's different than the traditional business coach that leverages my own strengths, and I call them superpowers, of being able to think outside the box and make suggestions to folks that they never would have thought of before.
Mark, let me share this with you. You already know this, but you're hearing it from another voice. You like to help people out. I think there are different ways that people express that. But what you just said to me is something that I find with most everyone that I speak to who have the X factor, or that genius superpower within themselves. They discovered it by not by design, by accident, or there are no accidents, but they discover it through application and then somebody saying to them, have you thought about this? And then you begin to expound and explore and expand that knowledge, that knowing, whatever that X factor was, that making people feel good about what they were doing and succeed. That's not something that comes easy. I know of one other person who has that same quality of helping people and getting them to realize their own genius. That's what you're doing, and helping them to see it. I think that's great. Now, when you started working with people and then when it dawned on you that there was something special, is that when that word therapist came? Because it is like therapy. You're helping them to explore deep to see what lies beneath.
Well, I did realize that I couldn't just call myself a business coach because It was so hard to differentiate. I do know a bit about marketing, and I knew that no matter what my approach was, if I called myself a business coach, I'd be lumped in with the other business coaches. And like you said earlier, they don't all have the best reputations as a group.
Not at all.
There's good ones in there, but like as a group, maybe not.
Yeah.
So I thought a lot about it, and I thought, what am I really doing for people? I'm doing therapy on their business, not on them necessarily, but on their business as it relates to them.
Yeah.
And so where I ended up with this is that I'm able to help people figure out what their own strengths are, their own superpowers. I have a number of assessment tools that help with this. Then I look at their industry and their business model and I say, where is there alignment and where might there not be alignment? And where there's not alignment, that's usually where the stress occurs. And that's where the unproductivity occurs.
Yeah.
As an example, like, many business owners feel like they have to do everything. Chief cook and bottle washer.
Yes.
And and they are doing things that they don't even realize that they're not good at, that they don't like doing.
Exactly.
And the stress just continues to build. Instead of waking up in the morning, leaping out of bed, saying, I can't wait for this day, they're trudging out of bed going, oh, another day of this. And can't wait to happy hour. So, if people are happy with what they're doing, they know they're good at what they're doing, and they know it's valuable and it's contributing to their business, the likelihood of success is so much geometrically greater than if they're going through the motions, checking the boxes and doing what they feel like they have to do. And that's what I help them do. I help them get out of that rut and into the flow, as I call it. They're in a flow so that, instead of waiting for happy hour, they're looking at their watch going, where did the time go? That is a sign of success, of where they're doing things that are contributing to their business, they love doing, and that they're good at doing. And that's where I get them, leveraging their strengths, doing and it's funny because several clients of mine have labeled me the business chiropractor because the realignment of the business model that I'm doing to better match their superpowers, their strengths, so that they can be in this state of flow.
Mark, I love the way you express what you do, because when you started off sharing with us a little bit about and giving us more insight, you mentioned that word cookie cutter. And so many who are using that label, that title, coach and so on, that's what it is. And they don't offer what people really, they think they're offering what people will pay for. But what you said is, you ask yourself, what are people going to pay me for? And you have learned, and I have to say, I'm tooting your horn for you, because when I first met you and you gave me some seeds that I haven't implemented yet, but they're still here, and I will at some point. You gave me such a great, and I'll mention it to you after the show, because I'm going to not say it over the air, but I can understand why people are taken with what you offer them to leverage their business, to give them the success that they want. Because you do have what I call the X factor. You can give it any name you want to, but you're able to see underneath and below and beneath and above where they can go to build a successful business. So again, you discovered this not by accident. What's another verbiage? You discovered it by doing it a lot, working with people, and they come back to you and share, my goodness, how did you do that? What happened? So then when you're working with successful startup businesses, and you're working to get away from being that traditional coach or advisor. You mentioned it, you alluded to it a wee bit, but give us more tips and nuggets about how you do that. How do you get them to see underneath, above, and below what can be?
Well, it's a little bit of a process. I do assessments. I don't do the same assessments on everyone. It depends on what their North Star goals is, as I like to call it, where they're trying to get to, where they're at today, where they see their challenges and their strengths. And then I apply different assessments to basically confirm and validate who they are and what their strengths are. And once we have agreement on what that is, then we can proceed. And that's where the magic happens, if you will, because if I know that person or that persons, if it's a leadership team, I know what it is that triggers them, both in of course, in a negative way. That's where we think of triggers, but also positive, right? There's positive triggers too.
Absolutely.
And what I try to do is set off those positive triggers as much as possible, so that we have this enlightened conversation about what it is. Have you thought of this? Have you thought of this? Here are some options. Are you trying to expand your business? Are you trying to exit your business? Are you trying to, get better, improve your portfolio so that your margins are better? There's a lot of different things that people are trying to do. All their North Star values aren't always revenue and income. Sometimes it's things like reputation and legacy, or balance, or control. Or recognition, fame. There's a lot of different things that people are off trying to do, primary and secondary. And so, I don't think any other business coaches touch that with a 10-foot pole.
No.
That's what I try to focus on. I just want to give one example of that, because I had a client who was a solopreneur. His big thing was legacy, right? He had a great career. He was fine financially. He just wanted to stay in the game and be in the game. And so a few months into the engagement, he said, "Mark, I've been wrestling with this thing all night. I don't understand. I have this opportunity. I can make a ton of money in a very short period of time, all above board. However," and we determined it was about a 10 to 15% chance that the optics of what he was doing could look really bad. And it could blow up publicly for him. And I said, "Well, we know what your North Star value is, right? This should be a no-brainer for you. Legacy is the most important thing. If you have a 10 to 15% chance of losing that legacy, is it really worth it for you?" And he said, "Oh my God, Mark, you're absolutely right. I should have thought about that. This is a no-brainer." And we went on, and that decision was done. He was done wrestling with it. The stress went away.
Mark, the pinpoint of how you express that to us blows me away. And all of you who are tuning in now, and those of you who will come for the replay, you have an assignment. You know that we love homework here. So you make sure that you connect with Mark. The pinpoint of how you brought that in. Mark, I remember as a very young girl listening to Les Brown, who said everyone has greatness within them. I don't know why, but that's stuck in my craw. Because I think everyone comes with a gift, greatness, and a genius. And I think one of your many talents, and you spoke to it somewhat, is being able to support people in that discovery, in that find. You mentioned words that are very dear to me: values, your moral compass, legacy, and how you balance that all out. And just because most of us, without question, need money, it's not the end all be all. You have to have it. So that's why your work appeals to me so. Now, what are the types of clients, you gave us a great example there, that you work with mostly? I know you mentioned it, but give us a little more juice on the type of businesses, the type of solopreneurs, entrepreneurial people that you work with, and the type of businesses.
Yeah, great question. I help people just like you, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
I am focused on entrepreneurs and small business owners. And when I say small, I mean really small, like no more than 50 people in the organization. And with a healthy dose of solopreneurs, spousal teams, family businesses, and small partnerships. Most of my clients are in service-based industries as opposed to product-based. Not that I, wouldn't serve someone in product-based, but service-based is really where my wheelhouse is. And I'll say lately I've been resonating particularly well with spousal teams and family businesses. It's interesting because, again, compared to a traditional business coach, I mean, there's so many extra dynamics going on in those situations that you're not just trying to, move the business ahead forward, but there's also the family or the spousal dynamics that you have to kind of control. I mean, the primary directive is to advance the business, but the very close secondary directive is to at least maintain relationships, if not enhance them, right?
Yes. That's interesting, Mark, that you would say that lately it's become like a somewhat family type owned businesses. Because for me, my lineup and everything goes under this umbrella. First is family. Whether you think it could be extended family, it's family, and then you led into relationships and then the community that you're building and the legacy that you want to leave. So it's fascinating for me to hear you say that of late it's become family type owned supported businesses. I find that interesting. What about the solopreneurs or the entrepreneurial men and women that you're working with? What do you find? This could be a deadly question, but I know you'll rise. What is the number one? I know you can even bring me into the equation. Not so much fault, but the thing that you find that most people need your guidance with. Is it the baseline of the business aspect of it, the creative, the innovate? What is it? How would you break that down?
Well, that does vary quite a bit. Some business owners are solopreneurs are brilliant in one aspect. They invented something, but it's hard for them to manage the business out of a paper bag, and they need help with the business aspects of it. Others understand the business aspects of it, but maybe not. It's always good to have a sounding board. I call them a Sherpa. I like to call myself a Sherpa, like to say to identify blind spots that they might be running up against as a solopreneur. Because as a solopreneur, it's lonely at the top, and there's not really people that they can confide in or get help from. I liken it to elite athletes. I mean, they all have coaches, believe it or not, right? They all have their own individual physical trainers or whatever it is. And I don't see that much difference with a solopreneur, a brilliant person who is running a business, but, also could use some help and understand how to totally maximize the business and avoid pitfalls that hit people when they're not, fully aware and they have those blind spots. We all have them.
We all do. Yes.
So that's what I would say with solopreneurs. And again, with solopreneurs, it's the chief cook and bottle washer. It's like one of the things I frequently am doing with solopreneurs is trying to figure out what things that they're doing every day that they don't like doing, they're not good at doing, and maybe it's not adding value either. And either outsourcing it, hiring somebody, or just plain eliminating it. And it's amazing that, things that they thought were important that they could eliminate, we test it out, baby steps, but, after a month, they don't miss it. Why was I even wasting all my time doing that?
Fascinating.
And it's hard as the person in the forest to see through the trees sometimes. And that's when I can be a great help.
I was about to say, sometimes we can get all of us in different ways so deep in the forest we don't see the trees. And that's why you say we all need a sounding board. And by needing that, one has to know that. And that's why I label myself the minister of enlightenment, awareness, and awakenings. It's like an awakening. You have to sometimes people have to poke you to let you know or ignite something that you can see, and you're big enough and open enough to know I could use some guidance here. I could use some support here. I need a sounding board, and one that is aligned with what I'm about and what I'm doing. So I get what you're doing. And not only do I get it, I applaud and celebrate it because I know how much is needed. I've been floating around for a while, so I do get it. What has been one of the most, I know you've had lots of them, but share with us a story about one of the really heart-pounding experiences that you had with a business that really woke you up and gave you that secret sauce, gave you the magic that you knew was in you?
That's a great question. I think if the way you said that question, I think if I hearken back to my very first client,
Ooh.
right? My very first client that was the moment when I realized I can do this. This is something I've been like made to do. And that was the feedback I got. This client was a brilliant woman, and she did really well in her business, but she hadn't taken a vacation in 3 years.
Ooh.
Because as she said to me, I need to be personally involved in each and every aspect of my business to earn every penny that I earn. And if I'm not there, everything stops, right? Typical of what we've been talking about with solopreneurs, right?
Exactly. No.
What I was able to do with her is, again, knowing who she was, knowing how brilliant she was, and she was a thought leader in her industry.
Mm-hmm.
I introduced the concept of subscription or recurring revenue to her that I thought would fit well with her status as a thought leader in the industry. And what, one thing led to another, and what she was able to introduce tiered memberships involving, so that people would be subscribing to her content,
Mm-hmm.
to her, group sessions that she would do, masterminds. And then, at the top level was individual coaching, right? And that pivot, what was very successful for her. And then it took off because it was right before the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit and everyone switched to virtual meetings, it dovetailed incredibly well with her strategy. She was able, in the year after she introduced that, she was able to take 3 vacations. And not only, and she was okay, like, as long as I have stable revenue, I could even have less revenue. I just want to need vacations. Well, she had record revenues because people took to this. She marketed it well. She's brilliant in many ways. And she was able to take this new business model and just run with it. And she's been, so successful ever since. And she told me, and I said to her, when I suggested this, I said, you've used a lot of coaches before, right? She goes, yeah. I said, didn't any of these coaches suggest this?
No.
And she's like, no, you're the first. and I was incredulous because I thought, to me, that was obvious. But to her, who is, so brilliant herself, she's like, that's the most brilliant idea that any person has ever said to me, coach or not. So she's like, you need to be my coach and, you're my therapist. And this is before I actually came up with the name business therapist, and you need to help me. So I did.
Oh my goodness, Mark. You're blowing me away for a lot of different reasons. But when you mentioned this brilliant woman and you shared that story with us, I think that is so profound and deep for many of us to take in. Brilliant and status, a woman of status, how you got her. But what you said, I want you to think about this for a second. You said it was so obvious to you, but you see, it wasn't obvious to her and to a lot of other people. That's that X factor, superpower, however you want to label it, that you have. I know you have expressed to me a couple of things that I know were not in my wheelhouse either, but will be. So when you say that because she was able to pivot, and right after the pandemic, so many people came online. So I'm sure as you get more and more in touch, as you market, how many people can you serve though? You're going to find a lot of people who are going to need your guidance and your support, because the pandemic brought a lot of people out of corporate. And now with I don't talk politics, but with the new political structure, a lot of people are out of jobs. So they're looking for new things to do. So I'm just loving this. I think the work that you're doing, you can put on your crown and say kingly, because it's so admirable, because everyone needs help, no matter how brilliant or gifted you might be. And you have a humbleness about you with all of your knowledge and awareness, which for me is refreshing. Give us some more examples of businesses and clients that you've worked with, and that obvious thing that you were able to present to them that they just could not see at the time, whatever that might be. Big business, small business. Well, you said small to medium business. What are some other tips that you can share with what they did as they pivoted to what was more workable for them and successful?
A recent example, I was engaged with a family business where the founder and patriarch wanted to have a structure for a smooth and equitable plan to pass his 40-year-old business to his sons, who both worked for him. And I said, well, we can work through that, and we worked through the structure. But as I started meeting with each of the father and the sons, I realized I uncovered a communication gap within the family.
Ooh.
And I realized that this is an obstacle that is critical to address prior to presenting and successfully implementing a transition plan.
Right.
So they all recognized it too. When I brought it up, we worked together to resolve the communication gap among all the players. And I was able to provide a framework to ensure that everyone was communicating on the same wavelength and being heard.
Ooh.
And what this resulted in was higher productivity, lower stress, stronger camaraderie.
Yes.
And it set the stage to then move forward with a successful transition plan. And this gentleman, the father patriarch, he just sent me this incredible testimonial as to what I did. Nothing like I had ever seen before. I was like, this looks like it's fake, because it's so wonderful. Like, it looks like somebody threw it through AI or something. Give me the most wonderful testimonial you could ever give me. And I was just like, I was so moved by it. That he, thought the world of what I did for him and his sons.
Well, how could you not be moved by something like that? And you mentioned a word here that before we wrap, and we have some time yet, wrap this up. Communication gap is a terminology that you use. And Mark, I happen to be a happy senior, old school, old fashioned back in the day, and happy to be, because right along aside and aligned with that is my love for young and youth, the energy, the spirit. But I do find that because of technology, somewhat, I'm not blaming it on technology. I think there are a lot of variable factors involved, that the ability to really communicate is being lost. So when you say there was a communication gap, they weren't able to express their inner feelings or something, I'm assuming, which is always somewhat deadly. But now you have them on the same wavelength, and that's not easy to do, because you're talking about, I'm assuming, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking about generations. You're talking about the father, maybe the younger daughter, maybe the daughter's kids, whatever, right? But you were able to align all of that. That's brilliant.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, again, to me, it seemed like, this is a problem that was just presented, and I was just thinking logically, and again, I don't see where I'm doing something very special, but I get that feedback from people, so I guess I am. In this case, it was you're right. It was the generational ways of communicating. The younger generation text and Zoom, and the older generation in-person handshakes, drinks, and there was a difference of how they did it, and then not to mention that, the sons who were married and had kids, and moving away, and moving this, and all these other dynamics. And what I was able to do is I understood that these dynamics were distracting from the business. So I was able to get everybody to, I worked a tiny bit on what those distractions were. I said, you got to resolve this in some way or another, but let's focus on the business when we're doing business, right? And let's not carry resentments. Let's not, understand that we all communicate differently. Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. We did some role playing, and that seemed to do the trick.
Well, you know what? Your last name fits you. I work as a signature style specialist, and your name is Style, and you were able to make cohesive all of these different styles. That's a gift, my friend. That's a gift, and it's one to be applauded. I have to say that when you talk about being seen, being heard, everyone wants to be seen, heard, and valued, and especially today in this technology, which we see all the time. The time flies here, and I want to ask you one last question, but you had something you said to me ask you something about, and now I've forgotten whatever it was, and you probably can't remember it either. But I want to ask you, what legacy are you looking or hoping, and my momsy would say praying to leave? I think you've already spoke to it, but what is it that you want to leave your people that you're working with and the people that you are come around and are surrounded by and associated with? What is a legacy Mark Stile wants to leave?
Well, that's a heavy question. I think professionally speaking, I'd like nothing more than the success and happiness of my clients to speak for itself as to what I was able to accomplish with them to improve both their businesses and their business lives, if you will. I'd love to be thought of as a high integrity advisor who helped his clients achieve their North Star business goals and values by playing to their strengths, adhering to their values, bringing their authentic self to each and every interaction and task. And as a result of all of those things, living a very, if not stress-free, a low-stress life, which extends people's lives and just makes their lives so much more robust and productive. I think, if I were to look at my own strengths, I'd say, I guess uncommon business savvy. I have exceptional curiosity, that I know. I think creatively, and I seem to have an ease in establishing rapport with people and with clients. And this is what I've been told. I can see around corners. I think all those things have contributed to the success that my clients have experienced in working with me. And I guess I probably should say, from a personal perspective, I'd love nothing more than to be remembered as a good person, a kind soul, and a helpful presence to my family, my friends, and my colleagues.
Wow, that's loaded, and it's loaded. It's a fully loaded baked human, not a baked potato. Let me say to you that you said exceptional curiosity. I always say, maybe this is why we're aligned, I have this insatiable curiosity. And as we started off here today, I never give up. I never say die. And I love the way you said a robust kind of outlook on life and that curiosity, and you're able to see around the corners. But you also used another word that's very endearing to me, integrity. That's why I say our moral compass, that integrity, if that's not at the top, and then underneath that goes other layers, and it's surrounded by love. So you spoke to all the things that most of us who are working towards being professional, leaving a legacy, and being of service to others, that's how we speak to it. I just think it's fantastic what you're doing. I could go on and applaud you on and on and on. But do you have any questions by the way, share with those who are tuning in now and those who will come for the replay, where will they find you? Because this is radio and it's a little bit different from the live stream that I do and podcasts and so on. What is your website? Is it simple, or is it On the Mark? I love On the Mark Advisors. Business therapy.
That's the website.
That's where we go to find it.
onthemarkadvisors.com.
Wonderful. Because that's where, and when I make up a poster and send this out, you'll get it, and then you'll be able to post it and have people take a look and see how to connect with you, and you can put all the information that you need on there. Mark, what can I say? I can say that I celebrate you. I love your title, a business therapist. And I never shared with you, my sister had 2 masters and 1 PhD, and she went into psychology, and I went entirely the different direction, but we were thicker than thieves, and we used to have the most loaded, loving conversations about human beings. So when I saw your title, Business Therapy and founding partner on the Mark Advisors, I said, wow, that's a great title. I just think what you're doing is fantastic. What parting words, what takeaway, what do you want to leave us with?
I appreciate that. I don't know. I would just say one of the things I didn't get a chance to say, but maybe it's important to your audience, is just, we talked about the difference between what I do and what a traditional business coach does, and among those differences, there's the customization and the personalization that I do versus the one size fits all methodology that the other business coaches do. The fact that I focus on strategy and stress reduction, that, again, the 10-foot pole business, that's not what traditional business coaches want to focus on. Mm-hmm. And I'd say that my business model is conducive to the small business owner. Unlike a lot of traditional business coaches, I don't require any large upfront payments. I don't require long-term contracts. I don't have hourly rates that present conflicts. I have no limits on how often somebody might want to talk to me or engage with me, or email, or any which way, because I know that small business owners, problems happen not during regular business hours. They need help. I'm there for them. I'm their insurance policy, if you will, right? So there's no set office hours. And because it's I enable my clients to pause or stop anytime they want, right? We solve the problem. There's, no reason to continue, stop. If there's no chemistry, we stop. If there's, a health issue or something like that, we pause. Very flexible. And I know myself that I know if I'm proving my value, if I'm not consistently adding value and proving my worth, then there's no need to continue engagement. I would be the first one to say, all right, fly the nest, let's go. And let me know, call me back when you have a different issue. I think the other big differentiation, I believe I'm fun to work with. Yes, I think there's a lot of fun and humor that, you can't take yourself too seriously. Yeah. And that helps people get relaxed and enjoy the process and be able to communicate things that, their vulnerability that they might not have done for others. And lastly, and I'm sorry, I'm going on and on here, but
no, it's okay.
I would say, I never, ever hard sell anyone to get their business.
No.
And I never will. It's just not something. I know all these sales techniques that you can do and manipulate people and make them feel guilty, and only I can solve it and no one else can. How can you not engage with me? I don't do any of that crap. No manipulative sales techniques. No denigration of anyone, making them feel guilty. So it's a relaxing conversation. My clients choose me. I choose them. There's no pressure. There's no what bill of goods was I sold? So none of that. And I'll stop.
Mark, you're rambling on, but it's good rambling. It's good rambling. You gave us so many pearls of juice and wisdom there to deal with gems. You said you're like an insurance policy, a good insurance policy, and you allow people to stop, pause, and you're very flexible in working with them, and you make it fun and so on and so forth. You do have the X factor. I know that for sure, and that's why I'm honored and delighted that you would come and spend this time with us. I'm going to ask you just to say so long for now. I'm going to be back with you in just a second. I cannot tell you how you've enlightened and ignited and instilled in me what I know is to come and coming soon. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my goodness, my League of Eagles out there in the world of technology. Thank you for tuning in to Leaders in Light, Love, and Legacy. I am Joy Ruffin, your minister of enlightenment, awareness, and awakenings. And my featured guest today brought you so many jewels, gems that you need to, or hopefully, as Momsy would say, I hope that you will take to heart and soul, because they were very, very powerful. Let's keep the connection going. Visit with me on my website, Joy Ruffin, Ruffin with an E.com. And also subscribe to my new YouTube channel, Joy Ruffin, Fashioning Femininity, Style, and Truth. Mark ended with truth, integrity, and so do I. That is everything to me and to you, or you wouldn't be here. And remember that you have an assignment to connect with Mark. In the meantime, remember that my work with you in leadership, know thyself, show the presence and own your divine, masculine and feminine, because it is within each and every one of us. And know that I am honored to meet with you one-on-one. and see how I can support you in your leadership signature style and how you show up. Whether it's style, leadership, divine femininity, equality, or power, it all boils down to family, relationships, community, and under that umbrella, love. Live in your truth. Stay connected. And remember that we will be here with you every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're eager to connect with you right here on Zen Radio Fave FM. Sending you much, much love always from my heart to yours. Stay well, be safe, and keep that sparkle in your heart. All the best until the next time. Cheers.